I'm sharing 3 of the biggest mistakes Black women who are writing a book make. And I'm sharing them so that you don't make any of these mistakes. But first, if you're new here, I'm Alicia Joy, and I uplift Black women, published authors, and aspiring authors. And I'm also an author myself and a book coach. But anyway, let's get to the 3 big mistakes. Mistake number 1, as a Black woman writing a book, is suppressing your voice. So many of us Black women can relate to this and have a shared collective experience, especially those of us who were raised and who live in countries where we are a minority. Oftentimes in school, but especially in the workplace, but even just out in general, we find ourselves very conscious of how we come across. We're constantly reading the room, we're walking on eggshells, we are making sure that our tone doesn't come off a certain way because we are quickly labeled aggressive, argumentative, we are fighting, we're shouting. I mean, literally, the minute we open our mouths to say something, to express ourselves, and sometimes even if we don't open our mouths, we get these accusations. We're fully aware of this. So we'll often find ourselves kind of tiptoeing and, making sure that we don't say certain things or we don't say this with this tone because these certain people may feel intimidated or as if we're attacking them. But what happens through this process over the years of doing this is we learn to suppress our voice. This is what happens. We are suppressing our true, authentic voice to the point where sometimes we get to a place in our life where we're not even sure of our voice anymore. And when you write a book, your voice is one of the most important aspects of writing the entire book, if not the most important aspect. But it's really hard for your voice to come out onto the page if you've been kind of hiding and suppressing your voice all these years. It will feel challenging. And to get over this, if you think this could be the case for yourself, and I would say for a lot of us Black women, it is. You have to write and write and write. And not just write for other people, but also write for yourself. So things like journal writing, and I'll put a link in the description below for the writer's journal. But journal writing, and if you want to write nonfiction, like a nonfiction book, you could start by writing articles, writing blog posts, writing, long captions on social media to share them with other people. Because through this practice, you are starting to develop and uncover your voice. I never say that you need to find your voice. I don't think that your voice is out there somewhere and you're over here. It's just that you've smothered it. So you need to uncover your voice, practicing writing in those ways. And if you're writing a fiction book, you could start by writing short stories if you're into short stories or snippets of a story. And I would encourage you to share them with other people. So some things you write for yourself, and that's what's fundamental for keeping a writer's journal. But you also need to get into the habit of sharing with other people. Stop suppressing your voice, Black women. When you come to the page, you need to be your true, authentic self. And in fact, if it scares you to write something, you're probably on the right track. My only caveat to that is if it's a memoir and what you're afraid of writing maybe involves certain people in the story. That, again, I coach people on writing memoirs, so this is a whole nother big topic. But if something feels scary to write, doesn't mean necessarily, yes, I have to write this. It may be needed to be, handled in a very nuanced way. But other than that, you're not writing a memoir. Everybody else, if something feels very scary to write, or maybe it's controversial, or maybe this is confrontational or different than other people in your genre or whatever, that may be a clue that, yeah, this is something that feels deeply authentic to you. And so expressing this would be a true expression of your voice, which I think there's not much else better than that in life and in writing. Okay, that was number 1. The second big mistake that Black women make who are writing a book is that they are unaware of the publishing industry. So the most common options when you're publishing a book, you can traditionally publish, that's one way to go, or you can self-publish. There are also some other things like vanity publishing, but let's just stick with traditional publishing and self-publishing. Traditional publishing does not have a good reputation for Black women. Surprise, surprise. And the publishing industry ebbs and flows in terms of what is popular. You know, 1 minute it's very popular to have lots of, or to be looking for Black women writers, and then other times it's like no. Also, the statistics on Black women working in the publishing industry are so low. I believe it's less than 5% in the United States, and in the United Kingdom it is just as bad, if not worse. I'm going to share a book written by a Black woman who was in the publishing industry for about 3 years, and she wrote a book about her experiences. I'm just going to share that at the end because I want to get through the big mistakes first. This doesn't mean that you completely shy away from the publishing industry and you think, oh, traditional publishing is not for me because I'll never get published because there's discrimination. No, of course, there are Black women authors out there and who have been published, but it's a matter of understanding the industry, understanding what some of the barriers could be, and preparing yourself well. In terms of self-publishing, that's the other direction that you could go in. There are also disadvantages to that, right? Advantages and disadvantages. I have self-published numerous books, and I've helped clients to self-publish books. Self-publishing, the biggest disadvantage, I would say for you, is marketing or the lack thereof. You don't have a big team and a budget and promotional campaign with the release of your book, which you have with traditional publishing, right? So again, something to think about. I have plenty of videos and blog posts coming up on the differences in what you need to know in terms of traditional publishing versus self-publishing so that you can make an informed decision. And the third mistake Black women writing a book often, unfortunately, make is expecting support from everybody. And when I say that, I mean everybody that you know, people who you're close to and people who you aren't close to, but basically anybody who you express this idea to. Oh, I'm writing a book about this. Oh, you know what? I've decided I'm going to write about this. You will get varying levels of support. And in fact, some people who maybe you think will be more supportive of you will not be as supportive, even though you may have supported those people a lot. We tend to be very supportive. This is what I've noticed from us. Black women, we tend to support the people in our lives a lot. Most of us. It's almost one of our characteristics. So we often think that support should be reciprocated, right? But not always. And for various reasons, but it's important that you are aware of that so that you do not become discouraged and so that it doesn't stop you from moving forward and writing the book that you want to write. Because support is a wonderful thing. When we have people in our lives who support us, it helps us. Whether it's a goal we're trying to reach, whether it's just our general life, whether we're going through something difficult, whatever. Support is, right, it's fundamental and it's so helpful. But as I said, there may be people in your life who aren't going to be as supportive of this idea as you want them to be. And you can't let that stop you. You have to really always drill down into your personal why of the reason why you are writing your book. And I'm always coming back to this concept of why. I even have an entire free download, the 7 levels of why. I'll drop a link in the description below. Because you have to really get clear on your why and revisit that over and over again when you go through the challenges that you will go through while you are writing a book. One of them being this lack of support. And also you may notice the lack of support from people who you don't know well. So sometimes it's from family members, friends, whatever. But sometimes it could even be, somebody in a professional setting, or, you could be in a social setting with different people. Maybe you know some of them and you don't know others very well. And then you explain, oh, I'm writing a book. And they may give you a type of look or reaction or whatever. Now, I don't have this idea that the whole world is against us, but I am fully aware as a Black woman that most writers do not look like me. So you listening as a Black writer also have probably thought about this and internalized this. I know I did growing up, even though Black women authors greatly impacted my life. I was still completely aware, because most of the books and the classics and all the amazing books that are lauded and acclaimed and whatnot, most of those they are written by people who are just about as opposite as I am. They're just the opposite demographic, the opposite person. So when I decided to become a writer, first a freelance writer, and then when I decided to write a book, I had quite a bit of internal hesitation. And I just share this with you so that you know that there are still many people in the world who have their own bias, whether it's unconscious or not, or it's fully conscious, towards Black women penning a book, penning a novel, penning a fiction book, penning whatever, even essays. And you may encounter that negativity in one way or another, but you cannot make the mistake of letting it be bigger than your book goal. Listen, your words matter. If for nothing else, I want you to really internalize that and understand that, yes, like I just shared these 3 mistakes, but they absolutely don't need to stop you. And before I go, I said I was going to mention a book, right? By Zakiya Harris. Zakiya Harris. And the book is called The Other Black Girl. And as I said before in the video, she was in the publishing industry. She experienced some very interesting, well, that's what the book is about these interesting experiences in the publishing industry. You could probably already guess, from microaggressions to passive aggressiveness to the politics, the things that unfortunately we experience across various industries. But the publishing industry is specifically what she's talking about in that book. So again, I'll put it up on the screen and I'll also drop a link in the description below. But I wanted to end this video by just reasserting that your words matter, and I hope you take away from here these 3 mistakes, and you don't make these mistakes. You don't need to, right? Now you know the 3 mistakes as a Black woman. You're writing your book. Don't make any of the mistakes.